Okay, it's ready. So, 1 second. So, the article I picked was We Move Together Reckoning with Disability Justice and Community Literacy Studies by Adam Huebrig. Silly me. There you go. And this is a big biography. I couldn't find anything on the author, but I did find that he is a professor at Sam Houston State University, an English professor to be exact. A summary of the article. Kubrick article discusses the ongoing and unfolding project of disability justice within the LGBTQA disabled BIPOC. Kubrick illustrates to the reader how we can better understand as well as challenge the work of community literacy studies. He accomplishes this by putting community literacy in conversation with disabled justice through two themes: nothing about us without us, and access is love. Kubrick's article also reveals how community literacy can not only resist ableism, but also the interlocking system of oppression which supports it. And to add on to it, I put what the abbreviations were. BIPOC is Black, Indigenous, and People of Color, and LGBTQA. It's very well known, but just in case, it's lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, sexual, and many, many more. Disability, I should say, disability justice is a framework that examines disability and ableism as it relates to other forms of oppression and identity, such as race, class, gender, sexuality, citizenship, incarceration status, and etc. Community literacy is a group of people who use reading and writing to communicate. The first concept is nothing about us without us, or epistemologic ethics. I just right there. This is a mantra that expresses how many disabled folks refuse to let others speak for them. Kubrick points out that we disabled individuals must be led by those who know the most about these systems and how they work. Community literacy grapples epistemologic ethics by examining its social knowledge and rhetorical expertise of people in the urban community in which worked as an assertion that literacy should be defined not merely as a receptive skill of reading, but as a public of writing and taking social actions. And to add on to this, because I don't want to write too much, this is just further examining how, like, if one person within one group doesn't want to be controlled by another one, like so someone who is deaf, they wouldn't want a person of hearing to talk for them. They want someone with the same disability, the same knowledge to talk for them. They don't need someone who can already hear say, oh, they're upset because of this. No, that's not what they want. Now, putting into play, or an example of it. An example of this would be that in the article, Kubrick mentions an interview of Johnny Zeri, a community organizer in Philadelphia. He described his experience working with the university schools. Working with the university was frustrating because uh, it was a lot of patronizing relationships. There was always the assumption that they know better when they sit at the table with us. His experience illustrates that when one individual presumes to have a sort of superiority, in this case, the scholar, it can ignite frustration from the individual. In this case, Izeri, when there was no superiority, but rather a balance of power between the two. Why this matters. This is important and a useful concept that can be applied to the classroom because of the persistent problem with community literacy of arrogant, patronizing institutional attitudes at the center of intercultural inquiry, challenging community literacy scholars to pick apart about how the system is rigged in favor of their institutional versions of intervention, as well as integrate our own values and ideologies. Moving to the second concept, access is love, or the ongoing process of ensuring accessibility. Access is love is a collaboration between Mina Mingus, Alice Wong, and Sandy. That should have a Y after Sand. It's Sandy, not Sand. This collaboration has produced important resources like an online guide to make conference and their public space and accessibility of suggested reading lists on accessibility. In this campaign, an organized led by three disabled women of color, access is presented as an ongoing, continuous, unfolding process. And I added a quote from the article says, access should be a collective responsibility. It is all of our responsibility to think about and help create accessible space and community. Creating access as a core part of what we want to, what is that was what we want to live in a world together as a core part of our liberation. Now, putting this into play, an example of this would be how community relationship practitioners attend to a broad range of access from secure access to food and water to access to education and writing communities for incarcerated people. I highlighted this just because like since it's literacy and we're going to education, this is like very pinpoint for like as future teachers here, as well as to access the basic need of housing for people experiencing homelessness. Of course, food insecurities, incarceration, and homelessness are also disability issues, but disability justice is about addressing access for dismantling interlocking systems of oppression. I added a quote that says, I added a quote from that article that says, seeking access means we seek to demolish the systems which create barriers. And to add on to this, this illustrates that one's financial status or even social status should not be a barrier for one's education. But as scholars, we should help ensure their education is an ensured accessibility. And why this matters? This matters because no individual should be left behind, isolated, or lack accessibility to ensure proper education because of the disability they may have. If there is a barrier, then we must educate ourselves as to how we can plan to execute that barrier from this situation. Cooper writes in this article that we were no longer willing to accept isolation or any tint, a tiny bit of access, or being surrounded by white disabled folks as the only kind of disability community we could access. So, like, in overall, they're saying that um, people of color, like, they should be surrounded by those like them with them. They shouldn't be just be what was convenient to them. It should be what they wanted. So yeah, and that's my presentation. Enjoy your memes. Have a good day.